What's going on, guys? This is Gene Jensen, and in this video I'm going to show you some of the baits that I'm going to be throwing the entire month of June. All right, so the first bait that I want to start with is basically the one I'm going to be throwing the most. I'm going to be throwing it literally from June until August, and that's the Texas rig, and specifically the big worm. Matter of fact, 13 Fishing has one called the Big Squirm in kind of a plum color. They call this sweet red chili sauce. It's one of my favorite colors. Another one is just a big, it's like a Zoom old monster. Let me get it out. It kind of got hung up just a little bit in my under my pedal, but something like a Zoom old monster, just a big worm that you just drag around on offshore structure. Because this time of the year, when June rolls around, the fish are done spawning, they're pulled out on the end of points, they've pulled out into drops and on ledges and things like that, and something that you can get down a little bit deeper and fish those drops and those outside edges is always a really good thing. So the colors that I'm mainly going to be throwing are going to be black and blue, green pumpkin, and a plum color, some kind of a pink color, are my three colors that I'll go through first. And I'll play around with the green pumpkins and maybe throw some glitter in there and that kind of stuff. All right, so the rod and the reel. This is a 7'3" medium heavy, 8-1-1 gear ratio reel, 15 to 20 pound test fluorocarbon line. I'm gonna throw 3/8 ounce tungsten weight to start with, go up higher if I need it to fall faster, go lower if I'm fishing a little bit shallower. I basically want to get away, I want to fish the lightest weight that I can get away with. The hook, specifically for kayak fishing, but the hook has become one of my favorites. This is the Gamakatsu Finesse, G-Finesse. I think they call it the flipping hook or the heavy cover hook. I'll leave the description to all this stuff down or I'll leave the link to all this stuff down in the description. But this has been a really good hook because it's super tough, but it's lighter wire, so you can set the hook in a kayak and not have to worry about missing that hook set. You just lose a lot of power with it, with a hook set in a kayak. All right, so the next one is gonna be a Carolina rig, and I'm gonna throw this on humps offshore. I'm gonna throw it on ledges. Anywhere I've got to cover a good sized area deep is where I'm gonna be throwing a Carolina rig. And I'm gonna throw it on a 7'7". Let's try that again. I'm gonna throw it on a 7'6" medium heavy. And I always throw it on a 7'6" medium heavy. The longer the better, just because on those long casts you get bit, you really got to put some meat to them, and you've got to have that long rod to be able to get a good hook set with those long casts. But the weight is, and I love these new weights from VMC. Not sponsored by them, but I've been waiting for weights like this for a long time. But this is a 1/2 ounce tungsten weight. I got a bead and I got a Carolina keeper, and I'll have links to all of these videos or how-to videos of all these lures up here in the cards. So the things that I like to Carolina rig, first of all, 4/0, 5/0 EWG for fat lures like this, but I like to use an offset worm hook for this. Now this is a Magnum trick worm from Zoom. It's one of the ones I love to fish. I'll also throw a Senko on it, but I usually don't use Gary Yamamoto Senko because they break up really easy. I'll use some of the other brands like Big Bite baits and stuff like that last a little longer on the hook. But that's just all I had today. Other ones I like to fish is the BFF from 13 Fishing because it has no salt in it. It floats. Let me say, it doesn't sink as fast as something with salt. It will stay floating up in the air and just slowly glide to the bottom as you're dragging, which is really nice. And then the same worm that I do with my Texas rig, big ribbon tail worm like an old monster or a big squirm or something like that. 8-1-1 gear ratio reel, 15 to 20 pound test fluorocarbon, and just have a whole lot of fun with these things. I love catching them on a Carolina rig offshore in the summertime. Now last month I talked about the buzzbait, and I'd be talking about it again this month because it still holds true. Throw buzzbait this month. But because I talked about a buzzbait last month, we're going to talk about a Whopper Plopper this month. This is another one. When it's windy, this thing works better than a buzzbait. When you get that really good chop on the water, and even a lot more wind than that. But throw a Whopper Plopper. I have several different sizes. I just grabbed a white and a black because these are typically the two colors that I try the most. And I fish it on I fish it with braid is what I love to fish it on. And usually 30, 40, 50, whatever I have on the rod, I really don't pay much attention to the breaking strength. But a medium heavy rod and a 7:3 to 1 or 8:1 to 1 gear ratio reel is exactly what you're looking for. But the Whopper Plopper is just a lot of fun. I did a video a couple of years, I'll link it right up here, but definitely have this in your box or tied on. All right, so the next one is one that I'm really gonna work hard on this summer. And it's more of a personal challenge to me, but I'm gonna throw it out there in June because I really think it's one of those things that can get you a lot of big bites all summer long when they're out deep on ledges and things like that. And that's a deep diving crankbait. So what I've got is I got the 13 Fishing Cliff Banger. This is a really good one. I love it. The depth is marked on the bills and stuff like this, but that's one I'll be throwing. Other ones I'll be throwing, it's like the XD series from Strike King or the DT series from Rapala, those type of deal. But I want to show you a new one from 13, and these are out on the market. I just don't have any because everybody buys them up so fast, but I'll leave a link to Tackle Warehouse on them. But this is the Troll Hunter, the new $6.99 deep diving crankbaits from 13, and these are the final prototype samples that they sent me. I had a lot to do with the testing of them and things like that, and so I'm actually going to get these custom painted so I can fish them. But this is what's cool about a prototype. They send them and they paint them white with a chartreuse back so you can see the action. So I can, when I'm fishing them and testing them out, I can see the action real easy. I wonder if that color will catch a fish. I bet it would. But anyway, so I'm gonna get them painted. But the Troll Hunters, I'm excited about these baits when they get good and solid on the market after all this COVID mess is done. The rod I'm gonna be throwing it on. See, I got a DT10 on this one. Is a 7'4" or longer 711 medium heavy moderate action rod. This is a 13 cranking rod, but it's literally, you want to have that nice parabolic bend. I'm not going to throw it on a high speed reel. I'm going to throw it on a 6'3" to 1 or 6'5" to 1 or a 7'5" to 1, something like that. 7'5" to 1 is probably a little bit too high for something like the big deep divers with big bills. So 6'3" to 1 is usually what I'm going to look for. 12 to 15 pound test fluorocarbon. 12 if I really want to get it to its maximum depth, but usually I throw 15 just because I hate losing those baits, and when they get hung up, it's a lot easier to rip them loose with heavier line, and you also catch bigger fish on them. But anyway, that is my deep diving setup, and like I said, it's going to be either a 7.4 or a 7.11 depending on the bait. But I'm excited about this year. I really want to make these things work for me. All right, so now that the banging has started in the background, we're going to try to get done with the last two real quick. The one, my panic bait, the one where the bite is super tough and I'm just having trouble getting the bite, I'm going to throw a Shakyhead. Okay, and so what I've got here is, and I never can remember the name of this Shakyhead, but it's a missile bait Shakyhead. This one is my favorite one. I catch a ton of fish on them, and should I say it's my current favorite one. I'm really happy with it so far. I really get good bites, but the worms that I'm going to fish this on, or going to put on this, are something like a Zoom trick worm that doesn't have any salt in it. So you look at the package, and if it doesn't say super salty, it doesn't have any salt in it. So a Zoom trick worm, a finesse worm. What I like, what became one of my favorites last spring, was the BFF from 13 Fishing. Same colors as the ribbon tail worms from earlier in the video, but really it's nice to have one that doesn't have any salt, that has that good floating action, and you can really get a lot of shake on it. The rod I'm throwing it on is a medium or a medium heavy, 7 foot or longer, 20 pound test braided main line tied to a 12, maybe a 10 or 12 pound fluorocarbon leader with an FG knot. Just a great setup, and like I said, when things are tough, this thing can catch just about anything, and I love it. All right, last but not least is what I call big money. This is my jig. I love to, when they get out deep and get on ledges, or they get off of drops. And when I say deep is just relative to the lake that you're on. I'm not talking 15, 20, 25 feet. It could be, I was catching them on a 4 foot drop. That was, 4 foot on the top, drop down to 10 foot yesterday. They're sitting right there on those drops on the outside edges and on creek channels and things like that. But anyway, a jig. This is a Strike King structure jig. You can look at the teeth marks on it. See the teeth marks? Them some of guns. So this thing catches a few of them. All right, I've added some rattles and things like that to it, but black and blue, green pumpkin, so basically a black or a brown looking jig are the only two colors that I use. 20 pound test fluorocarbon. Excuse me. Heavy action rod. This is a 711 heavy. Anything 7 foot or longer will work just great. 8:1 gear ratio reel, because a lot of times when you drag and pop it over top of a ledge, you'll get a fish that's sitting up there and it'll grab it and run straight at you, and you've got to be able to catch up with them to set the hook. But anyway, this is not one of those you're going to catch a ton of fish on. This is your big fish bait. This is what's going to catch you the giants during the tournaments and during just fun fishing. And man, seeing all those teeth marks really excites me. But anyway, I throw this one, and there's a one that I fished from Greenfish Tackle. Actually, it's colors that I designed for Greenfish Tackle called the FM colors. If you go to greenfishtackle.com and look up FM colors, those will be the Flukemastr colors that I designed for them, and you can pick your jig heads that you want with that. But either one of those will work just fine. Jigs are great. All these lures are great. Make goals like I have with the deep diving crankbaits to master 1 or 2 of these baits during the month of June. And I'm telling you, you guys will be so excited about learning something new. But like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fishing. Introduce them to my channel. Let me help you teach them how to fish. More importantly, get out on the water. Go out and catch some fish and have a great day. We'll see you.